I don't think anyone, Ms. Reno, questions your motivation, but the question I do have is, what recent information did you have about the children, and from whom?
The information that the Bureau received concerning the children were from people who came out after the Bureau took over the operation.
But that was some weeks ago.
That was some weeks ago. We had not had any verification concerning the well-being of the children since that time.
But nor did you have any information that the children had been mistreated since that time.
Having indication that children had been sexually abused or beaten at any time within the past 2 months by somebody who was keeping them under those circumstances without in any way verifying to us that the children were okay, to me indicates a great risk with respect to the children.
I guess the question that I'm getting to is, if it was the brutalizing of the children in one way or another that was the motivation for this, and if that took place some weeks ago, why didn't the FBI's action take place some weeks ago?
Because we made a balancing judgment. We looked at it and we tried our level best to get them out without having to resort to any intrusion into the compound through tear gas or something else. That having failed, our negotiators, our professional negotiators having told us that it wasn't going anywhere, we felt we had to begin to take the next step to exert pressure.
25 minutes after the flames are first spotted, only a burning shell is left. Temperatures inside are now estimated between 1,000 and 2,000 degrees. Way too hot for anyone to survive.
As the scene played out live on television, David Koresh's grandmother watched, dumbfounded and grief-stricken.
He wouldn't have done that, those children. No, not his family neither.
The question of whether this was mass suicide or murder remains open tonight. And outside federal court today, where 5 other survivors were arraigned, questions were even raised about who set the fire.
Fire on some bales of hay that were lying around. It wasn't set intentionally? No, there was no plans for suicide at all.
Late this afternoon, 2 of these survivors talked with Koresh's attorney, Dick DeGuerin, who claimed he heard some startling revelations.
They both told me that there was no plan for suicide, that this was not a suicide, that as far as they knew, that the fires started accidentally, that either the Bradleys started them when they injected the tear gas, and that the tear gas came in small canisters that exploded. There were gasoline or gas heaters, butane gas heaters, that probably provided the explosion that everybody's seen on television.
DeGuerin and fellow attorney Jack Zimmerman also showed Dateline the famous letter Koresh wrote last week, the letter never before seen, in which he promised that given time to finish a biblical manuscript, he would surrender peacefully.
So the question is, what happened between Wednesday and Monday that required that aggressive action on Monday that the Attorney General of the United States thought was so important? April the 19th, 1993 had to be the day when the risk was something like 90 people's lives. And the results are clear. We know what the results are.
It's very hard for me to imagine someone willingly enduring what it must have been like inside that compound, because fire is so hot, so smoky, so disorienting, so dark, much darker than most people realize. I mean, chances are at a certain point they wouldn't have been able to see the hand in front of their face. That's an extremely scary situation.
His final hold, religion, his version in word and music. These are the faces of the faithful, those who entered the inferno. The followers of David Koresh, who are believed to have perished with him.
We're all searching. We're all searching for understanding.
David Jones, third in charge of the compound, presumed dead. Steve Schneider, second in charge of the compound. His wife Judy and their baby, all presumed dead. Also presumed dead, Peter Gent, his twin sister Nicole, and her baby by David Koresh.
Why didn't we just wait until Mr. Koresh went to see his dentist or to have his car repaired or anything else? Why engage in a confrontation unless we must do so to protect human life?
You had a building that had 50 or more rooms in it, with it known to have at least 100 people, women and children, on the inside. That's a potential hostage situation before you go in.
After the federal agents pulled back, the siege began. The FBI took over, brought in armored vehicles, and sealed off the compound.
They were running over the bicycles. They were crushing the cars. They were damaging the property, as nice as I can put it. They're running over boats and pushing them out of the way and really tearing up a lot of their possessions. And he was angry about that.
I know of no theories of law enforcement that call for harassment of the bear in the cage, if you will, playing music in the middle of the night, changing the ground rules now and again, allowing attorneys in and not. I just, in my heart and in my memory, see no rationale for that kind of thing. It seems to me that you're lucky enough indeed if you can get the issues on the table and negotiate those issues, but to complicate them by harassment and so on, I found questionable. Why use force, particularly potentially deadly force, crashing into the building, smashing in the roofs, dropping tear gas, and finally assaulting? Why use these things when there is no indication of harm coming to human beings inside? David Koresh wasn't going to go anywhere, and absent again loss of life or threat of loss of life and so on, why would anyone think that you'd have to do these things?
That they would have to
harass, press forward, squeeze, to use your term, Mr. Walker. Why squeeze him?
Gas.
Yes, why squeeze him? Absent the information that unless we do so, we're going to lose some people. Then I'm right back on the same page with what happened.
But the authorities had waited 51 days.
Well, wait 52, or 53, or 54. I have no problem with that, rather than seeing 80 people and, what, 17 children among them burned to death.
Well, let me say first that this business about child abuse, I was in the compound and I spoke to David and to others in the compound for a total of about 30 hours. I saw no evidence whatsoever of child abuse. I saw some happy, peaceful children. If I had seen any such child abuse, I would have reported it promptly. I think it's a false issue. I think it's floated just to justify the earlier misconduct on the part of the agents that first started the raid. Let me just interrupt you to ask you this. How would you know? I mean, if there had been sexual abuse of a child, I'm not sure that's the kind of thing that you could just spot by looking at children. I don't understand that to be their claim. I understand their claim to be physical abuse of the children. I saw no physical abuse of the children. I didn't see any scared kids. I didn't see the kind of vacant look that you would expect from someone who's been physically or sexually abused. I saw kids that were at peace and were happy with their mothers, and I saw nothing to make me suspect that there was any substance to those allegations of abuse. I think they were thoroughly investigated by state authorities before this raid ever occurred.
My daddy, you know what he used to do to me when I used to act up, when I had a bad report card? Can you imagine? We got our tails whomped. Maybe you did too.
Did you whop tail, see?
Now, let me tell you something. Having my tail whomped, I told myself as a young man, when I grow up, I'm going to do it different. And I do it different.
The general points out that these are the same people, after all, who killed 4 members of the AFT and wounded 16 other agents.
The ATF. You have to remember that also there were at least six of their people that were killed at the same time. And let's look at how this thing started. They went there with a search warrant that didn't authorize them to stormed the compound. They went in there like Marines on Iwo Jima, and they stormed the compound without warning and shot the first shots.
The gas started coming in. What was David Koresh doing?
The reports I have are that he walked up and down the hallways a couple of times, told people to get their gas masks on, and asked if people were all right. There weren't any drills going on. No one's told me about military-style drills, but they did try to be prepared as you can be to be surrounded in your home by tanks and people with sniper rifles. One of the survivors told me that she had had her gas mask on early, and it worked well and well enough so that part of the hours before noon she was calmly reading her Bible and even fell asleep at one point.
So after the first puncture in the front wall at about 6:04, they weren't called together, given a joint instruction of any kind?
No. There was fright. There was no real organization going on inside.
The compound was literally coming apart. They say their home, their world, was suddenly crashing down around them. Everyone moved closer into the center of the compound.
When they knew there was fire, there was pandemonium. They knew they were trapped. They felt that they were trapped even before that, but the fire kind of sealed it. We think that a number of the mothers with children in the center second floor of the building may have been trapped by the doors jamming. See, the walls were moving, they were being shifted around, the sheetrock was falling, the walls were falling apart, there was debris everywhere, and it was difficult to move around before the fire started. It was difficult to get out before the fire started. And once the fire started in the front part of the building and was whipped through by the winds down the hallways and through the building, they were trapped.
And Koresh?
No one saw him that I've talked to in the last hour. They think that he was probably in his bedroom with some of his children. His bedroom is what's been called the observation tower. His room was built on the fourth floor above that. He had recently, within the past few months, moved into that room, and I think that's where the confusion came.
I want to tell you what the FBI has been saying today. They say that some children, as well as at least one adult, were killed before the fire. Some of the small skeletons had holes in both sides of the skull, according to a source.
If that's true, that bothers me tremendously. But what bothers me most about what you said was, according to a source.
And sure enough, later today, the medical examiner backed off what the FBI was saying, the kind of thing that infuriates DeGuerin.
Quit all this rumor and innuendo. Let's get the real truth out.
So, just to make sure I'm clear on this, the survivors have told you, then, that indeed the children would have been got out. Indeed, everyone would have left if they could have. This was in no way a choice to stay.
That's what I've been told.
His friends say DeGuerin, a sophisticated defense attorney with a list of formidable clients, blames himself for not preventing the conflagration. Because he was the only outsider to spend 30 hours talking with David Koresh, many of them in Koresh's bedroom.
It was no more nicely appointed than the other rooms. The furniture was a little bit nicer, but not significantly so.
And you say there was no air conditioning in the room when you met with Koresh?
I didn't see an air conditioner.
Or feel it?
Oh, no. What the world had heard was there's this religious nut holed up in Waco. And I expected to hear some kind of ranting and raving. I was prepared for it. I wasn't expecting what I found, and that was a very rational, charming, intelligent young man.
DeGuerin says he saw something in the bedroom the FBI hasn't admitted. Bullet holes in the ceiling that could only have come from above the day of the ATF raid. Koresh was wounded that day. DeGuerin says the wounds weren't infected, but Koresh was weakened, apparently by loss of blood.
It drained, I'm told, for quite a while, and when I saw it, it was healing, but it was still causing him problems. Once he got some iron and some vitamin supplements, it helped tremendously, and of course he was being nursed by the nurses.
Was he using drugs?
No.
He wasn't using any painkiller? Did you ask him?
I asked him that. They didn't have painkillers. They had aspirin.
In the meetings, DeGuerin says, Koresh fed him Snickers, M&Ms, chicken stew, and took him on a tour of the compound. DeGuerin remembers how the women and children lived.
Women that had children usually lived in a room with their children and had no roommates. And the rooms had what you'd expect a bedroom to have.
It's tough for you?
Yeah. They had cutouts and alphabets and animals on the wall and toys, and the kids were there, and they seemed to be serene and healthy and clean.
DeGuerin, ever the defense attorney, challenges those FBI sources to offer real proof that the children in the compound were abused.
If they were such good people, why didn't they send the children out when the tear gas came pouring in, rather than risk anything with the children?
I'm told by the survivors that no one was being held against their will, that...
but these were children.
I'm told time and again that anyone that was in there was free to go at any time.
You know, Mr. DeGuerin, people sitting at home listen to you, and they say, he is painting a portrait of this innocent group of people who, however eccentrically, are just arming themselves to make a little money and because they believe in the defense. This completely harmless group of people, and it simply cannot be true. You don't build an armed camp like that. You don't behave like David Koresh if you're just an innocent group of people.
Yeah, I hear that, and if I've got any responsibility in this case now, it's to tell what I know.
Have the survivors told you that they'll begin the cult again?
No, they haven't. I haven't discussed that.
Would it surprise you if they did?
They don't view themselves as a cult. They view themselves as highly religious people. You know, I don't have any answer to what's going to happen to them in the future. The point is that they really believe what they believe. And who am I or you to judge that as wrong?
It's not against law to buy a firearm. It's not against law to buy anything that they sell at a gun show. I tell you what, being an American first, I'm the kind of guy that I'll stand in front of a tank. You can run over me, but I'll be biting one of the tracks. No one's going to hurt me or my family. Hey, I'll meet you at the doorstep any day, you know, and somebody will get hurt. If you want to keep playing that game, I'm talking to you. Somebody's going to get hurt. God speaks to me. I have a message to present. You may not believe that. If you don't believe that, then believe this. Irrespective of God speaking to me. You see this here? Hey, this is my family.
The second tape is very short.
You hear those tanks outside? Are you scared?
The sounds you hear are tanks clearing away obstructions to the compound 22 days before the final assault.
You want to go out there? You want to leave Daddy and Mama? Have I been a mean daddy to you? No. Have I ever beaten you or anything? Let's go. I gotta do right now. God gonna save me?
On this tape, Koresh has the children say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Don't wait for you, Mama. Okay, say bye-bye. Good girl.
Finally open up your mind. How did you sleep last night, Bill Clinton? Tell me, did you feel their pain? As 17 little children cried out and perished in the flames. Attorney General Janet Reno, I accept your offer to resign. How can you stand for law and order now when you won't answer to your crimes? 17 little children, all so helpless and so small. 17 little children, how many names can you recall? Maybe we should stop and ask ourselves, have we become so blind? Will 17 little children finally open up your mind? I've heard it said the Branch Davidians only got what they deserved, yet no one seems to know what laws were broken, what was in the warrant they never served. Yesterday I sold my TV set, stopped my subscription to the Times. To me it's plain to see the media was an accomplice to these crimes. 17 little children, don't it make you wonder why? 17 little children, how could they deserve to die? Maybe we should stop and ask ourselves, have we become so blind? Will 17 little children finally open up your mind? Open up your mind. Just in case you don't remember, let me jog your memory. In a church they called the Waco compound, back in April '93, 17 little children, all so helpless and so small, died a senseless death of gas and flames. How many names can you recall? 17 little children, don't it make you wonder why? 17 little children, how could they deserve to die?
In response to the threats, the FBI brings in Abrams tanks, the heaviest tanks in the Army's arsenal.
We become so blind.
The occupants in the compound were advised, this is not an assault. Do not fire.
How did you sleep last night, Bill Clinton?
I remember sitting in my room and watching the tanks and go through the building. He kept saying, and I repeat, this is not an assault or an attack, but how could it be otherwise?
Attorney General Janet Reno, I accept your offer to resign. How can you stand for law and order now?
What these tanks are doing in each picture is collapsing the inside stairwells. The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. Watch carefully as the tank backs out of the house. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jets is plainly visible.
Fire got so hot. It was coming down the hallways, outside the windows.
The wall next to me caught on fire.
Horrible sight here.
It got so close and got so hot.
And then I looked up and saw out the window.
And it was like, for your life, get out. And so I jumped out the window.
Shooting was in slow motion. Looking back, seeing the place on fire, I saw someone fall out of a window. On fire.
When I was looking back, they asked me, where is everybody? Where are the children? And what could I say? There the building was burning where everybody was.
People in their last moments would gather as a family unit. One family with 7 members were gathered where they were all touching each other as they finally fell into a clump.
31 mothers and all the children huddled shoulder to shoulder in the fierce heat, covered with wet blankets.
This is not an assault.
To me it's plain to see the media was an accomplice to these crimes. 17 little children. Don't it make you wonder why?
I want to refer you to talk to the Attorney General of the FBI. I knew that it was going to be done, but the decisions were entirely theirs.
Maybe we should stop and ask ourselves, have we become so blind? Will 17 little children